dear Sergei Tchoban, Nadia Bartels, dear Diana Carta, dear friends and guests, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the Aedes Metropolitan Laboratory and to the exhibition talk and the opening celebration of the exhibition Stephen Holl, Drawing as Thought, at the Tchoban Foundation Museum for Architectural Drawing. My name is Dunya Bushi, I'm the Managing Director of the Aedes Metropolitan Laboratory, and it's my pleasure to guide you through the program today. Let me begin by saying that we were truly overwhelmed by the interest in this event today. We did our best to accommodate as many people as possible. I understand that not all of you have a comfortable seat. There is a live streaming in that room over there, so if you want to sit there, you can. Please forgive us if you're uncomfortable. Stephen Holl is internationally renowned not only for his extraordinary buildings, but also for his artistic oeuvre, which includes more than 50,000 sketches, black and white drawings, and watercolors. The exhibition Stephen Holl, Drawing as Thought, at the Tchoban Foundation Museum, which we are celebrating today, and which was curated by Aedes founder Christine Fallreis, who will speak later, presents a selection of his remarkable graphic works. I won't reveal too much about the exhibition just yet, as we will discuss it in a moment, but I had the privilege of getting a sneak preview yesterday. It is a truly remarkable exhibition. I think you're in for a real treat later. I am pleased that we have successfully harnessed the synergies between the Tchoban Foundation's program and the Aedes Metropolitan Laboratory by establishing an ongoing series of events exploring the evolving role of architectural drawing in the design process. This talk is one of them. This discussion is obviously particularly relevant in the context of digitalization and the education of the architects of tomorrow. Drawing as Thought would actually be a very fitting title for the series itself. My sincere thanks go to Sergei, Nadia, Maxime, and the entire team at the museum for their dedication and for making this possible. While we're on the topic of gratitude, I would also like to thank our sponsors, Cemex and Cambridge, for their ongoing support and for making our program possible. Let me give you a quick overview of this afternoon's program. We will begin with an introductory presentation by Diana Carta, followed by a discussion between Sergei Tchoban and Stephen Holl, moderated by Diana. After a short break, we will have the opening speeches by Christine Fallreis, Sergei Tchoban, and Stephen Holl, and then we will visit the exhibition. But first, I would like to hand over to our friend Nadia Bartels, Director of the Tchoban Foundation, for her words of welcome. Nadia, please.
Thank you very much, Dunya. Thank you very much for this welcome speech. I'm really very touched, and in such an important moment, I'm lacking words really because, well, the exhibition is overwhelming. Yeah. Dear friends, dear Stephen, dear Christine, dear Sergei, very welcome to this talk and the opening ceremony of the exhibition. As Dunya said, Stephen Holl is really a renowned artist, renowned watercolorist, renowned architect who needs probably no introduction. And we all are here because of the star of this evening. And I'm very proud, or our museum is very proud to host this exhibition. This exhibition, well, the idea about, well, how it all happened. I believe back in 2015, we were talking about the possibility to have an exhibition of Stephen in Berlin. And I think at that time we were showing Lebus Woods probably. And we communicated this idea with Christine. And I'm really grateful and thankful to Christine that she made it possible, that she created this wonderful exhibition. This is really extraordinary. Wonderful composition and extraordinary selection of drawings. And I have, well, Maxime from our museums team did great job. Thank you very much, Maxime, and Alexander as well. And we produced a wonderful book. You will see the quality is really extraordinarily nice, and we've got photographs and very nice printing quality. And the book is sold tonight at our museum. Of course, it's a special offer price. And of course, you've got the unique possibility to have the book signed by the artist, because Stephen is there. So grab the chance.
Be careful. You have to sign so much.
Yes, and well, our graphic designer Annika Pech did really good job. Also, I would like to thank Sergei, of course, who founded our museum and who is very passionate about this idea of architectural drawing, and who is a great draftsman himself. And I would like to thank our sponsors, Thomas Beton Group, who produce really fabulous concrete solutions, and our media partner, who spread the news about our exhibitions to the world. So thank you all very much for joining us tonight, and enjoy the evening. And now I would like to give the panel to Diana.
But I will introduce I will just introduce you quickly. Thank you very much, Nadia. Now please welcome Diana Carta, who will give an introduction to the role of drawing in the architectural approach of Stephen Holl. Diana Carta is an architect and scholar based in Rome. She's a PhD candidate in architecture theories and project at Sapienza University in Rome, collaborates with Pratt Institute and with Politecnico di Milano. She's the author of 2 books, Lake of the Mind and Tangible Intangible, as well as numerous essays in international magazines. Diana, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction and for inviting me today. I'm very fortunate to be here with all of you in this wonderful place in occasion of the opening of the exhibition Stephen Holl Drawing as Thought. This title of the exhibition represents a crucial principle for understanding the work of the architect and artist Stephen Holl. That's because drawing is not just a sketch for the architect or a shape, but it is a concept to be developed and brought out with words in order to guide the project. So we can consider as a path from the drawing to the building itself, articulated through a profound investigation based on the experience of space. So observing his architectural drawings means in somehow being the place of the idea's genesis, where it's still formless, and then following it along the path where it changes, transforms, takes shapes, and defines itself as a mental presence. If we reflect one moment on the etymological origin of the word project, we have the suffix pro, which means forward, and then iect from iacere, which means throw. So the project is what is thrown forward, and this cannot happen without intuition, which is a fundamental part in the work of the architect Stephen Holl. So in Holl's work, drawing could be defined as a spatial and haptic exercise that fuses the external reality of space and the matter and the internal reality of perception, thought and mental imagery into singular and dialectic entities. So far from being a passive subject, the architect, through thought and through the idea, clarifies the connections among phenomena. I don't know if you can hear me well. Is it okay? Okay. So in this way, in his watercolors, lines, surface, and volumes alternate in his drawings realized by Stephen Holl and they all enter into a mutual relationship, and the spatial images are formed by energies with third and fourth dimension relationships. The conceptual idea is articulated even through words and phrases that often accompany the architectural drawings, from the urban scale to the scale of details. We often see in the drawings, in the watercolors, words, keywords, and concepts and ideas written in the drawings. And the micro scale of the materials properties is included in this discourse. This because the idea that guides the design has a materiality of its own. Accordingly to Holl, even the most common and seemingly inert material must be allowed to speak its essence. And architecture involves a thought that forms through material it is made with. This aspect is also developed and further deepened in the physical model that constitutes a moment of intermediate work along with the digital process, of course, and through the model and the various design strategies are tested. And we can say that the model shop at Stephen Holl Architects firm in New York is an experimentation lab with many capabilities, and it is also where samples of the countless materials employed for each project are collected there. In general, we can say that the beginning of the work has a latent potential that makes it come to life. And what is also alive in the drawing is water. In watercolors, everything is broken apart and reassembled in a movement of this liquid, which, being precisely an alive element, is also unpredictable. Holl seems to be handling this living material in the same way he manages the transformative strength of the project, and at the same time accepting these changeable elements of the creative process means also working with doubt. For him, working with openness and doubt at the start of each project can produce work that cage sight and culture at the same time. From his perspective, the simultaneous interaction of topography, program, materials, and light come together to manifest the spirit of the space, be it natural or urban. So the psychological effect of sound and of natural light, of spatial and material phenomena becomes elements to be considered in the project so that architecture may be able to produce desire and create a psychological space. So we can say that the drawing thus represents the soul of the idea infused into the work. In fact, if one visits his architecture, there is a strong resonance with every word and every line, every color and proportion composed by him on paper. In the 70s, Holl's watercolor initially were in black and white, and they took the place of the technique of graphite and ink on large paper, and started to be organized in spiral-bound pads, 12.5 by 18 centimeter format for handy use on trains and on planes. Also, previously, Holl was experimenting through monochromatic drawing, intentionally contrasting with a typical pastel graphic belonging to the formalism of late and postmodernism. But then he felt, we can say, he felt the need to find a new way of representation that was more of a tool. So, accordingly, watercolors became a manner of working that allowed him to place insight in a primary position, liberating the imagination and capturing the primordial thoughts associated with conception of the building with its first impulse and toward form, space, and light. This work thus allowed the intuitive act of his work, both built and theoretical, to be grasped, revealing much more that would remain hidden without them. We can see that in his watercolors, he links the complex relationship between materiality and the formal elements with space and with the ethereal variety of light, in somehow analogously to the musical idea that links the motif and the theme. Drawing is also a control tool even during the site phases, so the temporal archiving of the drawings in his pad permits a rigorous process control, allowing him to monitor what is taking place before and after in the various projects he follows simultaneously. So a constant transformation work guides the project's development until it is carried out, and from that moment the built architecture opens to the observer individual perception, to his or her special experience, and the connection between idea and phenomena takes place. So visiting his architecture, one forgets from form in order to listen the echo of silence, that silence from which everything begins, and that represents the hidden source of meaning. Stephen Holl once said, "The creative work begins in the solitude of the connection of the mind and eye. The solitary room with a table and a chair is a functional drawing studio." So his way of working is grounding on the habit of starting the day with a series of drawings and watercolors early in the morning upon awakening, in order to capture his first thoughts, which are not always connected to the project. It is a technique that sparks the creative act, and Holl explained that in clouds of automatic action, thoughts begin and insight become inspiration. So drawing is a moment of meditation that marks the start of his days. It can also take place at any time of the day and in any location, of course, but the ideal condition for him is an absolute silence. The studio of artists often reflects a given way of working, the personality of the artist and his work, and it's fascinating to observe how different artists and architects carefully choose their studios with care, and this exerts an influence on their work and artistic creations. In Holl's case, it is interesting to bring to attention his small studio, the Round Lake Hut in Rhinebeck, upstate New York, which is the one we see now on the screen. And so the architect recounts that the choice of this area close to New York City was initially guided by the need to be far away from city noises. On weekends during his first years, he used to visit his stone house surrounded by a piece of land. And the property overlooks the Round Pond, which is a lake fed by pure spring water we see here in the screen. And it was right at the lakefront that he decided to build a small hermitage with a wooden structure, 2 large windows, and another window in the lower part of the wall facing the dawn light, and we will see these windows in the next images. So the small sites of 7.5 square meters and the absence of electricity and other utilities allowed Holl to build it as close to the water as possible. So it became a place suitable for finding concentration, and many of his drawings were created around Lake Hut. So Holl's works represents the synthesis of this unique creative path, and all the projects realized in Rhinebeck play an emblematic role. It is for him a place where ideas are born and where at the same time he experiments with architecture in a cyclical back and forth in the circular motion of time. The Rhinebeck campus also includes an experimental house called Exofin House. We can see right now the one drawing of this project. And there is also the T-Space exhibition gallery, together with the recently opened gallery within the Stephen Myron Holl Foundation Architecture Archive and Research Library. And we will see some of the drawings of all these projects exhibited today. And here in Rhinebeck campus, Stephen Holl, together with Dimitra Zakharelia, aim to create an immersive experience of all the arts and nature. So poetry, music, architecture, painting, and sculpture are brought to life through different cultural initiatives. So here, the immersive experience between all the arts and nature reveals a particular attention to the natural setting, which is not manifested only on the theoretical and cultural level, but also on the practical one. because each Holl's building is the result of conscious design choices, materials, and operation of the plants aimed toward the construction practice sensitive to the issue of sustainability, as it is the case with Holl's architecture. So we can see how the ideal place for the architect's drawing becomes at the same time a place of life, work, culture, architecture, and memory. So, and it is an imaginative memory because it creates new experimentations. But why do I talk about imaginative memory? Well, often when we think about memory, we only turn to something from the past. But again, if we focus on the meaning of this powerful and beautiful word, memory, we can see that it comes from Mnemosyne, that is the mother of the 9 muses, and we all know that the main role of the muse is to inspire poetic creation. Therefore, is an action that moves toward the future. So memory, imagination, recollection, and fantasy are all interconnected and always possess a specific content linked to concrete situations. So there is no moment in the artist's life that may be considered extraneous or irrelevant to the experience that is had in doing art. Furthermore, the mnemonic process is not limited to an event within the mind, but involves all our senses. Those who are unable to remember struggle to imagine, because memory is the ground on which imagination grows. It is also the foundation of personal identity, and in fact, we are what we remember. So cultivating memory must be a mission. And for this reason, the work at the Tchoban Foundation and Aedes Architecture Forum have been doing for many years is truly important, especially in this time where many things are changing in our discipline. I will not add anything more about the drawings you will see today, because I admit that words can hardly keep up with the evocative strength of Stephen Holl's drawings. So to conclude, I will use the Louis Kahn word, which I hope that they will accompany you all during the exhibition today. And so Louis Kahn said, "There is no such thing as architecture. There is the spirit of architecture, but it has no presence. What does have presence is a work of architecture. At best, it must be considered as an offering to architecture itself, merely because of the wonder of its beginning." Thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much, Diana, for this thoughtful introduction. Now we move on to the podium discussion. As Nadia rightly said, our discussions need no introduction, but I will do it anyway. Sergei Tchoban studied architecture at the Academy of Arts in St. Petersburg, and in 1995 became managing partner of Tchoban Architekten. In 2009, he established the Tchoban Foundation, which is based in the Museum for Architecture Drawing, built for this purpose in 2013. Sergei, I would like you to sit here. Stephen Holl studied architecture at the University of Washington and at the AA in London. In 1977, he established Stephen Holl Architects. He has realized, Stephen, could you sit over there? That was where was I? In 1977, he established Stephen Holl Architects. He has realized projects both in the United States and internationally, and received the 2014 Premium Imperiale International Arts Award for Architecture, the 2012 AIA Gold Medal, and the 2010 Reba Jenks Award. Stephen is a tenured professor at Columbia University's Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation. Welcome.
Okay, so can you hear me well? Yeah, does it work? Okay, so I briefly described before the creative process related to the work of Stephen Holl, but I would like to follow with this conversation and with topic about drawings and creative process and what is the importance in your work, especially now that there are many changes in our discipline, as I mentioned before, with an evolving means of conceiving, representing architecture. So many architects are not drawing anymore. So I would like to ask you if you would like to talk about the importance of drawing in your work.
First, I would like to thank everyone, Sergei, Kristen. It's a fantastic exhibition. I was blown away when I saw it first yesterday, but also by the response of all my colleagues. Philippe de Boda came from Portugal. Martin came from Ostrava. Roberto came from Chile. Justin Russley came from Zurich. Matthias Schuler came from Stuttgart, 6 hours on the train. So, I mean, this is an amazing, it's a fantastic exhibition, and basically it's Kristen who made this, the intelligence of the exhibition, but the overwhelming response is also my old friend Christoph Mockler came from Mockler. we had a small flat together, right, in Manhattan. We were both starting out in 1980, right. Fellow rat. There were rats in the flat, That's so we called each other fellow rat. Anyway, I mean, I'm very, very moved by this whole event, and sorry I had to break the chain of thinking. It's an amazing moment. Yeah. In fact, let me just. I saw the book, and I thought it was going to be a little spiral ring thing. It's a real book. And I was at the hotel, and it was a young man, and I said, if Matthias Schuler comes, is he here yet? He says, I can't tell you that. I said, what do you mean? We are a confidential hotel, we can't tell. And I said, could you give him this book, because he hasn't arrived yet. And he said, what's that? I said, that's an exhibition I'm having right now. And he looked up and he said, wow, let me take a photograph of that. I want to go there. That's something that must feel like it could change your life. And it's just a young man looking at it. But I think, to me, to do lectures and exhibition also is to give back education to young people. And someone mentioned that earlier about the context of this exhibition, which is the digital world, where everything is driven by digital this and digital that. Even elections are driven by misinformation, digitally, fire hose to a hapless population. Anyway, that's another story. But this is something that becomes very important in education for me. And the simplicity of this, and I hope it travels, we're hoping it travels, but the clarity and the simplicity of the two floors, the black and white, the beginning foundation and the upper level, bring it clear to the point. So drawing as thought, this notion that, it's the opposite of where we are as a culture in teaching, because people are making buildings out of just cut and paste digital images with no thinking, no thought. Buildings as no thought. Anyway, so yes, and I forgot your question.
It's fine, you already answered. That's great what you said. Yeah, we can say that drawing is not, is not anymore a tool of knowledge. It's not anymore a tool to investigate something. It's just sometimes a representation. So in which way we can teach that at school? That could be a good something we should, we should try to answer to this question. I don't know if you would like to say something about. I don't know if. Sorry, you don't have the mic.
No, I can do this.
Yeah.
Sergei.
As I can only thank you and Dimitro, of course, for coming, for making this wonderful exhibition. Of course, this visit with Christine to you was somehow a big milestone for me. Just also, you are my hero, to be frankly, since I was in Berlin, mid of 90s. I bought a big book about you, a single croc, and somebody has told me, such a nice book, I take it for 2 days and the book was away. I was so pity, but maybe it was the most pity point by my coming to Berlin, because I loved this book so much. I loved your language, I loved your rhythms of windows coming on the facade, but most of all, I liked your really drawings. And from the early to these notebooks, and as Christian helped me to create my foundation, and I had the first really very small and very careful idea to go with this foundation on the public and to make this building. So I think a dream was such an exhibition with you. To be frankly, I had a very nice exhibition already here from my personal appointment. I'm very glad that Luis Hutton and Matthias Abruch are here, because I think it was also a big milestone because of very special understanding of drawing. But I mean, if I think drawing is thought, drawing like connection between mind, eye, and hand, what you have spoken about in the words Diana made in her speech, I think that's exactly the idea of the museum. I believe, of course, in all of digital medias, and I don't like to stay opposite to it and to say, okay, digital is now and I'm against, or I'm not against. Of course, it is a parallel world, but to create a masterpiece, not only from the architecture, but also from the thoughts of architecture, from the fantasies of architecture, it's only a point what could be created by the mind with the help of drawing, because all other things are mixing inside. They're somehow a little bit so strange for me on this very direct way from mind over hand to the paper. So I'm very thankful to you that you are coming with your wonderful work, and of course I'm very thankful to Christine that she made such a wonderful choice with this black and white and color. We were in Rheinberg, and Christine was immediately, we make downstairs black and white. Look, Stephen, we make black and white, your drawings black and white. And Stephen was going somewhere downstairs. As Rheinberg is really paradise. What could express more the soul of architect? I cannot see anything more as Rheinberg in this way of building, thinking, and so on. And Stephen was coming from the shelf with this Rome project, cinema Rome project. It was so impressive. Suddenly were coming such a big drawings, as monumental drawings, because I tell every time, drawing is monumental. You have only to have small rooms for it. So we have small rooms, and then you have your drawings as a monumental pieces. And then these colorful notebook drawings in the upper floor. All in all, great thing, and great base to say drawing is a sort of architect. Thank you very much for it.
We were mentioning before the black and white drawings, and one of these is a project that you made in Berlin at the American Modern Library. I know, I read that it's an important project in your career. Also, if I'm not wrong, is a diagram on the cover of the book Anchoring.
Right, my first book.
Yeah,
right.
Your first book of architecture project. So it must be an important phase in your work, and has not been realized, unfortunately. And but I also read that is one of the bitterest disappointment of your career. So it's, I read that in one of your interview, and so I would like to ask you if you want to share with us this
Yes,
something about this
The
project.
Gedenkbibliothek really was a very important moment in my life, and I was 40 years old, and you know it was more than just the idea of the first OpenStack library. It was the first OpenStack library, but it was the idea that there was this relationship between America and Berlin, where in the beginning the USA paid for the library, and it was a German competition, and then this was Berlin paying for the library, and they wanted the best young American architects. So even to get selected, into this group of 7 was a big deal, right? Because there was a bunch of, I don't know exactly how I got selected, but maybe, okay. Anyway, and then, the making of the competition, and then we had this brilliant idea to extend the browsing circuit and jump over the existing building and unite everything and put the children's library at the top, the children's library, and I did a little video about the Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire, where he quotes Rilke about the child. If we lose our child in our mind, we really lose our intuition, and so there were many reasons why it's a super important moment in my life, but then we won. I remember Hans Koloff, who I don't think he's here today, but he turned to be a postmodernist, but he called me on the phone in 1988 in November and said, "Stephen, you won the library." And it was an amazing moment, and then we came here, and it was politically also, we were pushed out by a building senator. There's a whole story. So, because she knows every detail of this story, she makes that, when you walk into this exhibition, the door opens, there is the Berlin Library. It's the center, it's the feeling of the center, and to me, it's a very emotional thing to see it. But then, she's very smart, because she places, that ground floor is very important in my life. She places chronologically the main things that got me to the Chiasma Museum. Now that was, up until that time I was a professor, and by the way, I was sleeping on a plywood shelf over the entrance to my office. Nobody knew I lived there. I had to, I had a space no bigger than that room, and I was sleeping on a plywood shelf for 10 years, and it was $250 a month for that space overlooking a cemetery and an abandoned department store. So we won at that time. That was like, whoa. Suddenly, the Chiasma, the museum in Helsinki we had a staff, 5 people, but it would never have happened without the Berlin Gedenkbibliothek. So she knew that. And then second thing was the Palazzo del Cinema, which was in between. And I was told that we made it into the competition at Chiasma because of, and we did not win, Boneo won, but because of our design for the Palazzo del Cinema. They put us into the final, So it's like, for all the architects out there that try to get started with a competition, it's like a rags to riches story of trying to get started, having nothing, zero. No Yale graduate, no blue blood. I didn't know anybody in New York. Only my brother, who's a painter. He came to New York, on an excursion ticket from San Francisco, and it was so exciting I decided to stay there in 1977. No, it was the beginning was hard, long time. But then these competitions, one leading to another, and actually the importance of the 1986 Porta Vittoria project also got me invited. She knows the history. She could put all black and white, this A, B, C, D, E, and then upstairs, most of those buildings are under construction or ongoing right now. The University of Pennsylvania Student Performing Arts Center, the Chapel of St. Ignatius, which is the director's favorite project, the Chapel of St. Ignatius, in my hometown, which got the 25-year award in the American Institute of Architects, which to me is the only decent award, because all these other awards, magazine awards or this award or that award, but if a building has been up for 25 years and people say this is an important work, that's an award, Architecture is for the long run, it's not for the up and, well, that's a different topic. Oh, I forgot what you asked.
Yeah, you answer, and thank you very much. And it's very interesting to see how everything is connected to each other, and also each project has its own story and brings to another story. So we should consider your work in its entirety. And also, not every time. Sometimes happens also that drawings, even though the project is not realized. becomes more famous than the project itself. I was thinking about Danteum of Terrani, for instance. It was not realized, but the project became very famous. But also Piranesi, which is very famous for his drawing, he realized just one church in Rome, right. And all this was famous for his drawings. And so, I would like to ask to Sergei Tchoban about also about the drawing of Piranesi, because as I mentioned to you, I saw your exhibition that was Impronta del futuro, il destino della città di Piranesi. So you worked on the drawing of Piranesi. You used the drawing to try to create a vision. You try to give a message through the drawing itself. So sometimes, so it was not just a representation, but again, you were like giving a message. You were talking about the layering of the historical cities of Rome through the work of Piranesi. So I don't know if you would like to talk about this experience about drawing in this way.
Yeah, well, of course, Piranesi is some very special figure and one special person in the history of not only architecture but also displaying of architecture, because Piranesi, with his layers of town Rome, has given the idea that the architecture could be not only in this harmony, what we very often try to get and don't get, but architecture is also the composition of contrast and composition of some ways what are very outstanding. And I think the architecture, what Stephen Holl makes, is exactly the illustration for that the building today could be also completely interesting, outstanding, contrastful, as a intriguing, amazing, and from the public spaces, by not repeating of the language of the past, because of course this museum was created by me also as idea for the public discussion with the people, because we know a lot of critical voices in Berlin. What happens here? It is bad or even worse, and we should go back to the past, not only in Berlin, in many towns. And of course also Berlin made a lot of mistakes to go to the past, but let's say not to go too long, not to go too far, and to stay on the halfway. And I think in this case it's very important to create the samples, and in our very modest small space in our museum was, for me personally, important to create spaces for the people who could achieve this enormous high level of contemporary architecture, what stays on the same position as the historical samples what we admire. And in this case, what Stephen shows with his work is exactly what we all, our team, and me personally, also Christine, as somebody who was from the beginning by this museum, as advisor, to show contemporary architecture can something very outstanding. And that is what Piranesi has shown in his Vedute di Roma, for all of things, because a Baroque architecture was a contemporary architecture in the time of Piranesi, and with how hard and amazing contrast these Baroque churches, for example, were staying to the antique ruins. Everybody says today, oh, it's very harmonical how the antique temple and the Baroque church in the middle is putting in, but it's something else is very harmonical. It is a way of hard contrasts where both languages, antique language as Baroque language, are speaking on the same eye level. And that is exactly what Stephen makes with architecture today. He speaks on the same level of view with very big historical samples, and it makes his architecture very outstanding and very significant. And his drawings is exactly a continuity or the beginning of the thinking, the beginning of creating of these works. And I think that is what exactly I wanted to achieve in the foundation, to show such samples, and I think it only.
I'm very excited when you had the Lebbeus Wood show. You purchased lots of Lebbeus Woods. I have the story about Lebbeus.
Yeah.
When I first came to New York, I landed on 1977. I only knew one person, and I went to the Institute of Architecture and Urban Studies. I showed some black and white drawings to Andrew McNair, and he said, "Wow, you must meet Lebbeus Woods." And he called Lebbeus and told me to go down and see Lebbeus. He was down on in the deep Soho, very deep down in one of these old buildings. I went down, knocked on the door. I went in, and he was drawing. He had this enormous drawing board, and he had a perspective point way out there and way out there. And he said, "Come on in," and he had a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and I picked up the ashtray and caught the ash on the cigarette. And he didn't look up, he was drawing. And then we started to talk about Kierkegaard and philosophy, and I just was mesmerized by his thinking and his exploration. And I was very happy that at the end, toward the end of his life, we built the Light Pavilion, and it's not in the exhibition. We have to do an exhibition with Levi's. It's the only built. It's a. Yeah, it's the only built work like Piranesi. He built 2 or 3 things. You know, Levius has in Chengdu, China, inside of a building that I did, a project called the Light Pavilion, which you can go walk into and occupy. And Christoph Kompisch and Levius and I achieved that, and he saw it before he died. And you know, so it was, you know, I mean, Levius is for me the modern Piranesi. I mean, he was pushing the language of architecture always. And I must say, I think I was, you say you were influenced by some of my drawings. I was influenced by some of Levius's drawings. Maybe I even say that zigzag drawing inside the Gedenkbibliothek, that not just the, I had the idea of jumping over and all that, but there's one drawing that Levius did that I think influenced the way I wanted to go up through the floors, not, you know, direct, but, you know, and somehow I probably was looking at one of his drawings, so there was an idea about movement through a section, through a graduated section. I think there's a drawing in the exhibition like that, that originates as an inspiration from a Levius Woods drawing. So yeah, architecture, Piranesi, Levius Woods, you know, it's very important.
But, and also talking about this idea of, let's say, experimenting space through the drawing, you were talking yesterday about how you approach to the project without taking consideration, you were talking about morphology, topology, but try to don't look at the place just from the top, but just trying to be into, from space, and then using it to work on your drawing. So yes. That was. Would you like to explain what you were saying yesterday?
Yes.
It was very interesting.
For example, there's a new film. There's a new film on the work of Schindler in Los Angeles. You know, the houses of Rudolf Schindler. You know, his beginning point was in Vienna. So there was an influence of Adolf Loos in the work of Schindler. We can't deny that. But there was also an influence of Le Corbusier, all the modern moment. And these houses of Schindler, and this is a very interesting film, by the way. It's done by a Hollywood person. It's a real film. It's not just and I'm in the film, and I'm talking about parallax and movement and space. That's the key issue that Schindler did with these houses. So he took the ROM plan. You know, Adolf Loos's breakthrough was the plan of volumes, the ROM plan, like in the Muller House outside of Prague. That's a beautiful thing, but you can't photograph it. It's the plan of volumes. And he combined with the open plan, Villa Savoy, Le Corbusier, and these two conditions of space are what characterize his architecture. You know, so that's also something that I have to say for students. If you want to learn about architecture, you need to go and visit the buildings. You can't look at them in a digital screen. It's not space. It's not the material. It's not the light. So going, the most important thing I always say to my students is you must go and visit go and visit the building. Go visit the Pantheon in Rome and see how that light comes into that shaft. And that's very important. So there's more dimensions. Drawing is thought, yes. You know, I don't know. I mean, it's the actual condition of architecture, though, is something much more phenomenological.
and also is this way is also gives to the drawing a visionary strength, also because allows you to get inside the space, and in somehow you have the sensation that you can continue what you see in the drawing. So also through your imagination, through your also through your how to say your senses, and so we were. I would like to talk about. So we are saying about the importance of the space and the drawing. So it seems that all the things are merged when we talk about architecture, and also what was it's interesting in both of your work is how you try to create a sort to work in a sort of blurred boundaries between the arts, like architecture and arts, and also I saw that you both work on a project for a dance, how to say, for a dance performance, if I'm not wrong. So how could be used this experience as a way, as a tool to experiment? To make an investigation of the space, to also this experience, thinking about choreography, moving on the space, and then working with other people to create this through the drawings and through the strength of the visionary drawings.
Well, I think the drawing as a way to create the different spaces. One time it is a way to show to the creators of other occupations what you like to do. As in my experience, of course, enormous modest in this case, by you is much bigger. But I think the drawing is not only the way of think, the way of express the thinking, but also the way to show what you like to do in the space to another creators, what I may be like a ballet director or other creative workers. They cannot imagine it, and they maybe understand on this creative way of drawing some things much better as they would understand on the even, let's say, visualizations or something like this. But I would like to go in the other maybe direction to say drawing is also art piece by itself. And what I notice in your drawings, Stephen, that you don't create the space as it is or the volume as it is. You create some dream about the drawing. You create some fantasy about the reality. You create some collage from the different views, and that is in these like a dance, and can help, of course, by understanding of any space. And I think that makes the architectural drawing not only like a sketch with what you explain to everybody what you like to do, or maybe you fix for yourself what you like to do, but that is an art piece as itself. Right. That's why I, with biggest pleasure, I bought some drawings of you by Max at time, at Max Protege, New York, or by Antonia Iannoni, because I think your drawings, as some other samples, are really masterpieces. You can know your works, you can know your buildings, you can know the spaces in your buildings, but maybe you can see only the drawings and understand that it's a space of art as a drawing it is, and that I think is a huge quality.
I think that's why the show for me is so exciting, is because she chose these types of drawings that stand without relation. You know, they made the postcard out of a carpet that was never woven, because Father Sullivan rejected my idea. This was the carpet for the narthex for the Chapel of St. Ignatius. And I love the drawing because it has the golden section, the Fibonacci series, and the different phases of Piranesi's life, numbered numeral 1, numeral 2, numeral 3. And I presented this to Father Sullivan, and he says, Stephen, can't you make something more easy for the public to understand? And the carpet that got woven is the drawing above this, which is meant the pilgrimages of St. Ignatius to Cordova and Manresa, where he had revelation, And I finished that, and I have the river in the middle. And then Father Sullivan, can't you add Rome and Paris? Because he did major teachings in Rome and Paris. So I added Rome and Paris. And they wove that carpet and in wool from Kathmandu. Anyway, it's been there for 25 years. It looks terrific. And there's a river in the middle of it, and some ducks who have a nest in the pond in front of the chapel sometimes get through the front door of the chapel and sit on that river on the carpet. So, I mean, but this, to me, is a better drawing than the one that was built, right? And for me, this piece of work as an artistic effort it's meaningful. It has relationships to to St. Ignatius, not to Piranesi, to St. Ignatius, and it's a flat work. It's an abstract work. It has relation to the proportions that are in all of our buildings, 1 to 1.618. This joint to that joint to that joint. That carries through all of our architecture. The golden section, the Fibonacci series. Those proportional relationship to me is very, very important. But the fact that they chose the postcard, there's only two. There's one. This is a great drawing where you see when you walk in this fantastic night view of the Gedenkbibliothek. But the other postcard is interesting because it's a carpet that was never made. So it only exists as a drawing.
And it's also interesting what you were saying about the golden section, because architectural drawings in somehow includes thoughts related to geometry, proportion, which means numbers. So numbers in somehow keep reveal the expressive properties of the space, because through proportions you manage all the elements which are part of the composition. And we see often in your drawings some information related to the golden section, to Fibonacci series, and so I was also. I read also an interesting part. I will quickly read what Sant'Agustin said about numbers and relationship, because if you agree, I would like to read these few words, and I would like to comment with you, because it talks about a number in this way, how they number, you cannot see them, they have no color, they have no voice, you cannot taste, you cannot touch them. I hear the sound of the words that describe them, but words are not one thing, and arithmetic and geometry are another. I saw the finest line drawn by the artisan, but geometric line are one thing, and the representation conveyed to me by my eye of my body and another one. So he's talking about how is difficult to see numbers, but they are really strong in the way you use for calculating. So in this way, they are totally different. So they have they become even stronger. So I would like to talk about that, because I see often in your drawings these numbers. So I would like to talk about that. Yeah.
Well, I started it when I did my first house, and for my mom and dad, long gone, but it's still there in Manchester, Washington. And it was just an essay in 2 squares, and every single thing was in the golden section in different ways. And then the whole house is tilted for the equinox. So the rising sun on the 21st of March comes through a slot in the fireplace. So there's just the mathematics and the relation of the site and the sun that generates the idea for this very simple wooden, never published house. But I began to feel there was a relation to sound, and a breakthrough was when we did the Stretto house. Somebody just asked me about that the other day. Because Bela Bartok, the composer, composed using the golden section. And I was studying his work, and I thought, that's very interesting. He's not the only composer that used the golden section in music. So there's something about harmony in music that's related to these proportions. And I swear the great architecture that I've experienced all over the world, you'll find these proportions. Certainly in Schinkel. We just passed in front of the Altes Museum, you know, an incredible architect. And by the way, we teach a class called, Dimitri and I teach a class at Columbia called Architecture Apropos Art, where we speak about art and the architect and the relation in history. And Schinkel is one of the figures in our coming up through the history. You know, as Brunelleschi is, he discovered perspective, but Schinkel was a great painter. You know, there's all these paintings that kind of, if you look at them together with his buildings, and yeah, there's this relation. So yeah, this architecture of Popo art is a way that, you know, it's more than drawing. We're talking about music, we're talking about poetry, we're talking about sculpture, these relationships to the world of architecture, which I would like to see more explored in the university. The students love the class. We have like 50 people trying to get in. We have 18 students, and we're missing a class right now. And we're going to get back and teach on Thursday at Columbia University. But I love to teach that class because they do something. They make something. They take the architect, they choose an architect, they choose Zaha, they choose Le Corbusier, we had 4 people choosing Carlos Scarpa this year. Now, that's an interesting thing. I also feel that the young people have a thirst for what's missing in the digital world right now, which is why your museum will be more important in the future. And there's a group in London called Drawing Matter, which just has been coming up. Very interesting group of people doing things. So that's I think the attitude of the younger people who are getting bored looking at these digital things that just keep, you know, the magazines that we had when those days we had these incredible magazines. You could see a project, the plans and sections were there. The competition, you would see everybody who entered the competition. You could compare now it goes down and it goes away. It goes away, and 2 days later you can't find, what was that? I saw something on Dezeen or Arch Daily, but it's gone now, and there's no relation to the plan or this. I mean, there's a problem. When you're trying to teach architecture, there's a problem going on with the media, and so it's great that and I know that the younger students are hungry for it, because they really try to get into this class where we're working with drawing. They have to make something, a model or a drawing, and there's no digital dimension, other than we use, you know, the screen and everything we can. But yeah, that. So in terms of the future of this idea, I think there's a slightly bright future because the young people are hungry for it.
Yeah, and somehow, the screen don't allow you to use also your body, your gesture. Also with painting, we see an image, but when we get closer, we see the gesture. We see how the artist moved that in that moment, how I was feeling, his emotions. So the gesture is really important to give a message in the drawing. And I was impressed about a sentence I read. You said in a beautiful interview made by Christine Farais, and so you were saying that I learned to love architecture through drawing. So I think it's a really powerful sentence, and also, so I would like to ask you how, if you want to say something more about that, how everything started through the drawing. Also, this, yeah. So you were talking about this approach to architecture through the drawing itself. So yeah.
Yeah, in fact, I was studying from very young art, and I was coming from the dream to be artist to architect because I've drawn to bed, you know. And my teacher has told you are drawing to bed, and you are quite good in the mathematics. I think you should be architect. So on this quite ungreat way, I became architect. But I am not so pity about it. So I have still my fun in this occupation. And yes, but somehow in early years, I learned to draw architecture, to love architecture through drawing, because I was born in Petersburg, where a lot of architecture, not so much green, but a lot of architecture. And for today, I would say, very many people would say it is Instagrammable building. I would say it is drawable building. The building you can draw, and you like to draw, and you like to bring in the drawing maybe unsureness of the line, and it is still interesting to research the drawing on hand of the line. And I would say every building of Stephen Holl is very drawable, and that is exactly what I'm searching and looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if we have, I don't know how we are about the time, but I just have another question because I was saying before about the creative process and also the importance of repetition in doing something and also in the drawing practice. So I was explaining your morning ritual, so how it's important because also, I mean, the very doing is what comes from Latin, which means is related to the word poiesis, so it's the doing which is related to the poiesis, so which means something which is related to the creative process. So there should be a connection between this doing and the poetry, and so in the creation of art. So I would like to ask you, what is the importance of repetition in the ritual in the creative process?
You mean by getting up in the morning and making a little painting every day, repetition every day, every day, every day? I would just say it's like a religious exercise, you know, a kind of Zen meditation where it's, and actually, sometimes when I've been out too late and I drank too much, I don't feel like making a drawing, but I make it, and I'm surprised by what happened. Something pops up that I never imagined. I don't even, you know. So there's the role of intuition, which you cannot pinpoint. You can't really. The intuition is something that's it's underneath thought, because when the intuition presents some form, some shape, some things, and then you say, oh, well, that is that. That's what that is. You see it. It's there already in the drawing, and you identify it. You bring the thought to the thing, but the thing came down, and you don't even know exactly where it came from. And I know that's happened in many cases, and therefore, maybe this is not. It should not be called drawing as thought, after all, because the drawing shows up, and then you have a thought about it. That's pretty weird, right? That's backwards, and that's what happens, right? You know, Bob Dylan, there's an interview with Bob Dylan, he says, I don't really know how I wrote those pieces, you know, I can't do it anymore. But that's the intuition working, right? I mean, yeah. That's what's working.
It's also proof that the work is alive, because it has its own life, and when it starts, it start and go further. So you have to manage and follow it somehow.
So the repetition, the answer is force yourself to do it, and you'll be surprised, you know? It's like practicing the piano or something. I mean, there's something, the repetition is important. Okay, yeah, thank you. And I don't know if we have other time to continue the conversation, or is it fine? Okay. Okay. So, and yeah, in terms of repetition and ritual, because so I would like to ask also to Sergei Tchoban how is how you approach to this ritual drawing. So.
Well, for me, is a drawing like a diary. If I notice something what is interesting to be drawn and to make a fantasy or drawing or just a thought on the paper, I do it. I think it is very important to do it as far as you like to do it, because I think the repetition for me personally is absolutely important, but also so far you really like to repeat. Also, I still also modest like to repeat. That's why I do it. I do this repetition. But in any case, of course, if you like to draw well, you have to do it often. You have to do it regularly, of course. But most of all, drawing is like lettering. As for me personally, I just draw if I notice something and like to imprint it, like to express it on the paper, to leave there, and maybe the day after I would ask myself why I do it. But that day I did it, and that I think is a drawing.
Talking about repetition, there's a great pianist, Glenn Gould, you know?
Yes, of course.
And that was a man about repetition and focus. The work of a great pianist was a total focus on these certain of music. But I have some discs, And the title is A Sense of Wonder. That's what's exciting, right? That that you're making something and there is a sense of wonder about it. Like that surprise drawing that came, I don't know where that came from, but that's interesting. And that generates this sense of wonder. And I think it's not repetition. When you say repetition, it sounds like something like boring or
shouldn't
something.
be
My
gymnastics.
daughter would go,
Always
I'm
the
bored,
same.
that's very boring.
Yes.
She's 9 years old. She was
Shouldn't be fitness.
Baba,
It's
this is
something
boring,
else.
boring. No, repetition, I don't know. I would say sense of wonder, like what Glenn Gould says about the music, that he's over and over. I mean, he's just doing the Bach variations, right? He's just doing it over and over and over. Of course, with an overcoat on when it's 80 degrees and holes in the fingers, and the craziness of his life. But the sense of wonder is what propels it. And to me, that's about architecture too, the sense of wonder.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So we should consider the drawings we see today as a piece of architecture. So, and what you are saying, and a company has to see all the work we will see today. So, yes, I don't know if you would like to add anything about the exhibition today, or like.
Someone else making a speech?
No, yeah.
Is there another speech?
If you would like, no, it's just, to conclude, if you would like to say something about the drawing we are gonna see in a bit, so, or whatever. No, I'm asking if.
There will be the ceremony at 7, but we have a few more minutes before the break, so maybe you would like to take some questions from the audience?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, is that?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Anything.
because we have a few more, like maybe 10 minutes before the break, so if anyone has a question, now is the time. Don't be shy.
Matthias wants to ask about geothermal heating and cooling. You don't draw it. You just say geothermally heated and cooled. Wells go down 100
Steven,
meters.
This was for me one of the most impressive moments when I saw you drawing. I think it was for Puerto Rico, for this after the storm, or for where this disaster was in the Caribbean, and where you were drawing these houses for the people who lost their homes.
In
Haiti,
Haiti,
exactly,
in Haiti,
Haiti.
yes.
And you draw the solar systems, the geothermal system in your aquarels.
In the watercolors.
I saw
Right.
it in your aquarels. That was for me kind of a very special moment.
He changed my life. This is Matthias Schuler from Stuttgart, and we did the largest geothermal array in the history of China when it was built, in linked hybrid, 660 wells, 100 meters deep, that heat and cool 740 apartments. It was the largest geothermal, and I've been doing geothermal on every project ever since. Like our archive has a single well, 500 feet deep. It heats and cools 3,000 square feet. The electric bill is $40 a month. The little bungalow that's next to it is heated by an oil furnace. It costs $1,000 a month. So, there's certain dimensions when you talk about when you're going to build something, you're going to be an architect. We have a certain responsibility, to make that the most ecological thing that you can make it. And it's not about putting green balconies all over the building. Because if that building is fossil fuel heated or cooled, what are the green balconies? And that's greenwashing, that's not. So we're in the heavy lifting department, Matthias and I, and we're doing net zero buildings, and my archive is net zero. We have the solar now, the solar that runs the water furnace. $40 a month is done by solar, also runs the computers in that 3,000 square feet. So we're net zero with a green roof that Dimitra organized that has a watering system that does the whole roof, right? What is it called? A hydroponic system that automatically makes the roof very thick. That's also good for insulation. So that's to say that I don't think this is the most important thing for all the future architects. I think maybe one of the most important things that we all have to do is make the best possible architecture for the planet, which is kind of in trouble at the moment. We need to be global citizens, not nationalistic people. We need to be global citizens. That to me is probably, that's why the Amerika Gedenkbibliothek, you know, there was this kind of idea of global citizens, you know, sharing and doing, and not being, you know, selfish and nationalistic. So somebody sent me a little a note this morning. It says, what was it? It says, time difference is really strange, isn't it? In Finland, it's 1 p.m. In Mexico, it's 5 p.m. In America, it's 1930s Germany. It's a pretty strange moment we're living in. We're not going to talk about that. We're talking about drawing as thought.
There's one more question.
I'm especially interested what you are thinking about digital architectural drawings, and especially that many contemporary architects are convinced that artificial intelligence will be the future, and the traditional, the classical drawing won't be necessary, and it will be a technique of the past.
Well, you could also say that thinking is not necessary. Right? I mean, thinking is not necessary. We can build a lot of buildings quite thoughtlessly. And I actually feel like you can tell which ones are done that way. Ah, that was all done on the computer without a single thought. You know, no, I don't think there's any denying. I mean, you can also say that because of Instagram, we don't need any magazines or newspapers or journalists, because everybody can just say whatever they want, even if it's not the truth. You know, I think, yeah, we're in a very strange moment in society, where the actual digital means to pump misinformation is one of our biggest problems on our planet, right? And that and bad minds in high places, you know, that's those two problems together. That's probably quite serious. So I use digital everything, you know. Actually, one of the interesting things is when I was always working on those 5x7s, but when this came out about 10 years ago, I don't know when it was, I could take a picture and send it to the Beijing office and the New York office. 5 people would get my idea about what the competition that we're doing. 5 people immediately had the idea, and they could work on it because the idea was there, one image, sent simultaneously to all those places. That's a breakthrough. You know, that's a digital breakthrough in terms of organization and in terms of time, in terms of working. So that's very important. You know, there's a lot of positive things.
One more question and then we'll wrap up.
Hi. It's a really simple question, but I'm scared that I won't have the chance to talk to you later. So when you're gonna be talking to other people. So I wanted to ask, do you think someone that is really bad at math can become an architect?
Can you repeat? Can you say it louder?
Yeah? Should I say it louder?
Yes.
Do you, someone that's bad at math, can they still become an architect?
To be an architect? Yes. I think, you know, I mean, look, the truth of architecture is it takes a lot of people. Like, I mean, I have some of these, Dimitra Zachrelia, registered architect partner, Roberto Bernura, registered architect partner. You know, the collaboration is super important. So you could be, deaf and become an architect. You could be, I don't know. I think math, I like math. I have to say, when I was in the 8th grade, I had a math teacher by the name of Mr. Daniels. And he came in a suit, and he always had a tie, and he had a stick pin, and he used a small piece of chalk, and he taught me new math. They don't teach that in the American schools anymore. It was A union B union C, all of these overlaps of, it was called new math. And it's probably influenced me my whole life, you know. And there was a bunch of Republicans that made that be removed from the American school system, you know. So, yes, I think you can be an architect without having math. Maybe I didn't have math. I had...
All right. Okay. I wish I had Mr. Daniels as a math teacher. I didn't. Thank you so much for the conversation. Thank you all. We will take a small break now. We're expecting much more people than this to show up at 7 o'clock for the exhibition. So we will rearrange the space a little. The exhibition bar in the courtyard is open, so please go and enjoy a glass of wine, and we'll meet back here at 7 p.m. Thank you so much.
So let's start after this wonderful talk. And so actually I don't have to welcome now, but I do. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests and friends, welcome to you all at Aedes, also in the name of my partner Hans-Jürgen Kommerl, to the opening of the exhibition Stephen Holl, Drawing a Sword, at the Tchoban Foundation Museum for Architecture Drawing. And who don't know it, this is next door. And welcome, a special welcome to the protagonist of this evening. You know who it is? It's Stephen Holl, and to his wife, Dimitri. Where is Dimitri? Come on here. I hope I pronounced it right. And it's really great that you joined him. And welcome as well to Diana Carta. She's here too. Sergei Tchoban and Nadia Bartels. I think they will be somewhere around, but it is a bit crowded and we will not see them. After the inspiring conversation between Stephen Holl and Sergei Tchoban, I really enjoyed very much, moderated by Diana Carta. It's my true pleasure to give a brief welcome why we are here together to celebrate Stephen Holl and his outstanding drawn work. For those who could not join the evening this afternoon, please notice it was recorded and you find it very soon online. And I still have to say the conversation was for me, and I think of many of you who were here, really great, enjoyable, and thoughtful, and everything you could not, or you can expect. It was in 1987 when Georg Witwer, at that time Senator of Construction of Housing and Building in Berlin, asked me to propose him architects from the US to invite to the competition of the new American Memorial Library in Berlin, long, long ago. I was excited about his succession, made a list of architects, and a few months later, the senator and I were flying together from the east to the west coast of the United States to visit the architects. Most of them at that time were at the beginning of their international career. Lars Lerup, Karen van Lengen, Mark Mack, Morphosis, maybe some of you would know, Bernard Tschumi, Stanley Seitovitz, Wilfried Wang, and Stephen Holl, to name a few. Stephen Holl was finally the winner of the competition of the American Memorial Library. You said all the time, it is like Amerika Gedenkbibliothek, so we call it here. As you all, or most of you may now know, it unfortunately never got built. But it was the starting point of the remarkable international career of Stephen. The magnificent black and white drawings Stephen Holl did for this competition also forms a prelude to the exhibition Drawing a Sword at the Tchoban Foundation. So we are very happy when I had a press conference this afternoon that especially and that Stephen was excited about the exhibition. And this not happen all the time, or they don't say anything, but he was really excited, and we are too. Until today, I have followed with admiration life and career of this charismatic personality, brilliant artist, and outstanding architect. And we visit him at several places, a character who loves absolute silence and Zen meditation in the morning, as well as great parties in the evening. Is this okay? Okay. It was also time, my deep wish, to bring a selection of his more than 50,000 sketches and drawings to Berlin. Now it became reality. Dear Stephen, curating this exhibition, although I'm quite familiar with your oeuvre, was an unexpected adventure for me. And a challenge, by the way, too. Dear guests, when you now see the exhibition, and it's open very soon, you should follow Stephen Holl's personal advice, and I quote, because visitors can only encounter a small portion of the extensive body of my drawn work, it is best to explore and study each of them individually. I think you will see this is a good advice. Many thanks to Sergei for making this outstanding exhibition possible. Many thanks, dear Stephen, to you and your wonderful team in New York, especially Kelly Pope and Marissa Espe, who was there at the beginning. And thanks a lot, Maxime, are you here? Ah, okay, he is there. Maxime from the Tchoban Foundation, Annika Petsch, and Alicia Hoffmann for your great cooperation here in Berlin when we put this exhibition together. Now it's a and not to forget, there is a catalog exactly on this exhibition we published, and you can get it next door at the Museum for Architectural Drawings. So, many thanks. Is dear Sergei, are you here? Oh, please sit here. Please come, please, in the first row. Many thanks, dear Sergei, for making this outstanding exhibition possible. Many thanks, dear Stephen, to you and your wonderful team, I explained. And thanks a lot, dear Maxime Schulz, Annika Petsch, and Alicia Hoffmann, for your great cooperation here in Berlin. Altogether, it was a wonderful, exciting, emotional, and very wonderful and clear cooperation with all of us. So we are also as happy as you, Stephen, obviously are. So now I hand over to Sergei Tchoban, followed by Stephen Holl, who has the last word before the Museum for Architectural Drawings opened its doors, and the Aedes bar outside is already open. And sometimes it's wonderful because in winter, this wonderful museum has not so much space. So we decided to have and we are very close friends for 40 years and work together, so we decided we have the openings here, which is lovely to see you all. And then you have to know when you're coming then to this treasure box, you have to be very careful, but it's a wonderful adventure. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
So, dear guests, I will be very short because you should all be in a hurry to see this very wonderful exhibition. It's really like a diamond of some drawing exhibitions and I ever can expect. And I can only thank to you, dear Dimitra, to you, lieber Steven, for coming to the opening. And for you, lieber Christine, to first of all to making me acquainted with dear Stephen Holl, because the first visit in New York was with you together, And without your help, I wouldn't never get a possibility to work and to speak so close to my hero since my coming in Berlin in 90s. It is a big honor for me and for all of us to get this, to get you personally, Stephen, to come from very long way, from very long distance to us and to speak personally. It's really a great present. I thank also very much to Nadia Bartels for very nice directorium of our museum and for all organization, of course, as well to Maxim Schulz, to Annika Petsch, to Alexander Vollmann, to all our wonderful team to make it possible, but also for assistance of people of Stephen Holl to make it possible to sending here these all wonderful drawings. It is really a big masterpiece in altogether this exhibition. I have seen it now exactly, I must say, only big compliments. Thank you very, very much that you are here. Thank you very much for your outstanding masterpieces and work. And please, I give the word to you because you are the main hero here.
I'm not thanking anyone. Kristen organized this exhibition, and there's one place in the case where she opens the watercolors to a Paul Celan poem. On page 162, you can find it in this incredible catalog that I'm very proud of. We live in a brightly lit time. Poetry has cosmopolitan trait. The poem, too, has to stand for the non-answering. It is a matter of this also standing for the other in a shrinking place. The time for programmatic explanations is over. We are alone. I have another text I want to read that I wrote 7 years ago about drawing as thought. 7 years ago. Okay. My 2-year-old daughter comes to me at dawn saying, "Drawing, drawing." She sees me making my morning watercolor and wants to get up on a chair with me and make drawings together. We draw sailboats, birds, airplanes, things she knows the words for. Her drawing of the moon, however, is not what we would recognize. Rather, it is a long arabesque. She claims it's the moon. It's a moon rabbit. The interaction of the hand, the mind, and the brain, the human imagination, in an immediate neurologically connected way that cannot be replicated in a digital process. I believe drawing, especially for architects, is a form of thought. Today, supercharged digital rendering techniques can depict a building in its proposed site in every detail without an idea, without the thoughts of plans or sections. The immediacy of a child's drawing brings us back to the beginning of thinking. The hand, the eye, and the brain are all deeply connected when the child makes marks on paper. But the surprise, the imaginative creation, a moon rabbit, that is a product of the mind. And I wrote it 7 years ago, and I thought, that still applies to our moment. And on the way here, I made a sketch, and on the plane, I was reading Holderlin. It's really interesting to me that Rilke, the poet for my mind that really began my life, Sonnets to Orpheus and Duino Ulysses, began with Friedrich Holderlin, who I'm just discovering in the last 2 or 3 years because of the poem Patmos that he wrote in 1808. And I just want to finish with this. We waste our life waiting, and I have the faintest idea how to act. In the lean years, who needs poems? But poets, as you say, are like the holy disciple of the wild one, who used to stroll over the fields through the whole of the divine night. Anyway, that's my speech.
So now it's finally time to visit the exhibition. please follow the lit cubes to go to the Tchoban Museum for architectural drawing, and then the reception will take place here in the outside bar or in here. So if you have time after your visit to come back, we'd be very happy. Thank you very much for coming.